let's talk about two ideas from the ancient world that are so fundamental to our lives today, we don't even see them. They're basically the foundational software for our entire society, and they were written almost 4,000 years ago in a place called Mesopotamia.
I mean, just for a second, try to imagine a world with no written laws. A world where you could lose your home just because a powerful neighbor was in a bad mood. Or a business deal could be erased because a judge didn't like you. It was a totally unpredictable and frankly, a pretty scary way to live.
And then, right out of the heart of Mesopotamia, came something totally new. A new kind of justice. It was brutal, for sure, but it was also crystal clear.
So who was behind this? A Babylonian king named Hammurabi. We're talking nearly 4,000 years ago. And he had this radical, kind of crazy ambition to create one single set of rules for every single person in his huge empire. What he created is what we call a code. And yeah, it's just an organized list of laws. Sounds simple, right? But believe me, that simple idea would change absolutely everything.
And when I say this thing was thorough, I mean it was thorough. There were 282 laws in his code, and they covered the whole shebang. Business deals, family drama, even medical malpractice. It even had rules for what to do if your ox gored the neighbor's ox. Seriously, they thought of everything.
And the philosophy driving a lot of these laws was pretty straightforward. An eye for an eye. The punishment was meant to literally mirror the crime. You break a man's bone, well, guess what's about to happen to your bone?
And they were not kidding around with this. Just look at this rule for surgeons. There was absolutely no room for error. It didn't matter what your intentions were. If you caused the harm, you paid a very, very high price. Okay, but here's the big catch. While the laws were there for everyone to read, the punishments were not equal, not by a long shot. In Hammurabi's world, who you were mattered a whole lot. This table just lays it all out plain and simple. If you hurt a wealthy person, a gentleman, you were in for some serious physical pain. But if the victim was a commoner or a slave, you just had to pay a fine. Justice was basically a financial transaction. This wasn't just about punishment. It was about making sure everyone knew their place.
So you might be thinking, this sounds pretty harsh and unfair, so why is this such a big deal? And that's a great question. What was the really revolutionary part of all this?
It wasn't actually what the laws said. The big idea, the true game changer, was that they were written down for everyone to see. They were carved into huge stone pillars and put in the middle of town squares. Suddenly, justice wasn't just the random mood of a king. It was a predictable public code. But that brings up a pretty big practical question, right? To have written laws, you first have to have, well, writing. And that challenge brings us to the second giant legacy of Mesopotamia, the invention that made all of this possible in the first place.
You know, you'd think the invention of writing came from a desire to write epic poems or some grand history. But nope, it was born from something way more practical, the need to keep track of sheep, grain, and beer.
The system they came up with is called Cuneiform, and honestly, it's kind of brilliant. You just take a sharpened reed, press these little wedge-shaped marks into a tablet of wet clay, and then bake it in the sun. And boom, you have a record that's as permanent as stone.
And what were they writing about? The real nuts and bolts of their civilization. You know, how many goats are in the royal flock? Did that guy pay his taxes? How much grain did we trade last week? Writing was the tool that let them manage a society that was getting more and more complex.
And you can actually watch writing itself evolve over 2,000 years. It's so cool. It starts as a simple picture, in this case, a sun. Anyone can recognize that. But over time, look what happens. It gets more and more abstract until it's not a picture of a thing anymore. It's a symbol for a sound. And that leap is basically the birth of modern writing.
And the best part is, this amazing new tool wasn't just for kings and priests. It was used for everything, which means we have these incredible little windows into the daily lives and the daily frustrations of regular Mesopotamians.
I mean, get a load of this. This is a real message from a 4,000-year-old clay tablet. It's an angry boss complaining that his employees are stealing dates. It's just a perfect reminder that no matter how much technology changes, some things, well, they never change at all.
So when you boil it all down, Mesopotamia's legacy really comes down to these two massive ideas. First, that our laws should be written down and public. And second, a writing system flexible enough to record everything from a king's command to a complaint about stealing snacks.
You really can think of it like this. They wrote the original operating system for civilization, a legal code and a way to record information. That's the basic software you need for millions of strangers to cooperate. And we are absolutely still running a version of that program today.
Which kind of leaves you with one last big thought, doesn't it? Thousands of years from now, when people look back at our time, what are they going to see as our most important contribution? What is the code that we are writing for the future?